Hi guys! A few of you said that you wanted to know about some high-end products that I consider to be worth the hype and worth the investment, and so I came up with a list, and these products are just not found at the drugstore, but they're not necessarily at that luxury level. So these are kind of mid-level products that you might find at a department store counter or at a Sephora and maybe at an Ulta on the prestige side of the store. I'm gonna go in no particular order. I'm starting off with some powders that got a lot of buzz in this last year, and these are the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powders. This is the individual full-size version, and I have it in diffused light, which is my favorite out of all the ones I have. And this is dim light. These are finishing powders that are meant to mimic or recreate a lighting situation that is supposed to be flattering for your skin. Diffused light is a really finely milled yellow powder that I love to use to set my under eye concealer, and I also use it a little bit down my face to kind of balance everything out. I am using it right now, and I feel like I have to use this now whenever I apply makeup, which is pretty much Monday through Friday. The reason being, when I use this powder, my skin looks a lot brighter and I look a lot more awake. So with diffused light, it is a soft, warm, pale yellow powder that conceals redness and gives skin clarity, like a soft ray of morning light. Dim light is a neutral peach beige powder that blurs imperfections and highlights a radiant complexion with a perfect balance of warm and cool tones. Dim light I used to use as an all-over setting powder, which was really nice as well. Right now it is a little too dark for me, but sometimes I also like to use it right where I typically contour. So these right here, the individual ones, are $45 a piece, and I am telling you, at least for me, it is worth the $45. I also have the palette that was really popular this last year. So many people were wanting it, and I finally got it way later. So this palette right here is $58, and you get to try 3 powders for $58. Keep in mind, they are a lot smaller. When I first saw this palette in store, I was like, girl, that is so small. But so here's the comparison. So it's definitely a lot smaller, but a little goes a long way. You do get dim light in this powder palette, and you also have incandescent light, which is a beautiful, very natural highlight that you can put on your cheekbones, and radiant light, which is kind of like a bronzy, beautiful powder that has a sheen to it. Up next is a concealer that I've been really into the last couple months, and this is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. I use it in vanilla and custard, which is slightly darker. This is something that was really talked about a lot when it first came out on YouTube and on Instagram, and I finally decided to try it out in the last few months. This is now my favorite concealer. It is medium to full coverage depending on how you like to apply it. It does not break me out. It doesn't irritate my skin, which is usually a problem for me. It is hard for me to find products that do not irritate my skin and do not cause breakouts all over my face. And I like to use the vanilla shade under my eyes. I used a little bit right in this corner, and then I blended it out with, or stippled it out, I guess, with a beauty blender. And I used a mix of these two together to spot conceal. And I have this pimple right underneath my mouth, which is like the most inconvenient spot of life, because whenever you want to eat something, it just, oh, it's so annoying. But I used a mixture of these two to cover that up, and I used a little bit right around here and right around there. It is very creamy. I think these are a lot creamier and easier to work with than, let's say, the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer that's also hyped up and raved about. I do love the Pro Longwear Concealer, but now I'm not going to be repurchasing that. I'm going to continue to repurchase these. I also really like some from the drugstore, and that's why I think it is saying something when I say a $29 concealer is worth the money and worth the hype. This next one is not going to be a surprise to some of you who know me well, and this is the LORAC Pro Eyeshadow Palette. This is my favorite eyeshadow palette of all time. It has trumped my Naked palette from Urban Decay, and I just love that I can get so many different looks with this. I used it today for a very light, neutral look. You can go with a really heavy smoky eye. I hit pan on 3 shades, Cream up here, Pewter, and Black. And this black is my favorite matte black eyeshadow of all time. I use the black eyeshadow even when I'm not using this palette. I will grab this palette just for the black whenever I am lining my eyes, or when I'm really going for a smoky eye, winging something out, and I want to set my liner with that powder. I use it all the time, and of course, that is why I have hit pan. Now let's talk about a bronzer that I love and follow it up with a contouring powder. So this is the bronzer. It is NARS Laguna. It blends beautifully into the skin. It doesn't look streaky ever. I'm guilty. I used to use bronzers like this to contour. I don't do that anymore, and that's why I'm going to talk about a contouring powder right after this. So now I do like it to just kind of bronze up the face, not in the areas where you would typically contour, but just kind of around that area, around that situation. And next is the contouring powder. The size difference is extreme here, and the price I think is very similar to NARS Laguna. And this is the Kevyn Sculpting Powder. Look at the size difference on these two. But this is still worth the money for me. It is a very, very cool tone powder, and here I'm going to compare these. The Kevyn Sculpting Powder is very cool tone, and that's why it fits perfectly right in the areas where you want to sculpt your face. I do have a video all about the Kevyn Sculpting Powder, so I don't want to talk too much about it because you guys have probably seen that. But just in case, I will link that below, and that's where I also swatch the NYX shade in Taupe. It's a blush from NYX that's a lot less expensive, but even then, the Taupe shade looks a lot warmer compared to the Kevyn Sculpting Powder. So check that out if you want. I just love this Kevyn powder. It is HG, holy grail for me, and I will repurchase it when I run out of this. Now on the other end of the spectrum, we are talking about two highlighters that I really love. I've been really into highlighters recently. I've been able to kind of go without highlighter for a while, but now I love having a little highlighter on the inner corners of my eyes and a little bit on the tops of my cheekbones. This first one is the legit highlighter. It is very intense, and if you apply this on your cheekbones, it's kind of going to look like you have highlighter on your face, but that's okay. I think it's still really pretty. This is the Balms Lou-Manizer. Unfortunately, when I got this from Hourglass in the mail, I ordered this and they screwed up my order, and I never got something that I wanted from them, and this was shattered, so I don't buy anything from Hourglass anymore. That's actually the only time I've ever purchased anything from Hourglass. Sorry to go on a rant, but yeah. So I have a shattered Lou-Manizer. It is a very buttery powder that almost looks like a cream highlighter on your skin. It is so pretty and definitely worth the hype. This next one is the Becca Shimmering Skin Perfector Pressed in the shade Moonstone. So again, something that a lot of people rave about, and this I also think is worth the money. It is a little bit more expensive than the Lou-Manizer, I think, and this one's going to be less intense. I'm using this on the tops of my cheekbones today, and I use Lou-Manizer in the inner corners of my eyes. This is more of an everyday type of highlighter for me because it's not as dramatic as the Lou-Manizer. With both of these, there aren't big pieces of glitter. It's a very beautiful sheen, in case you're wondering. This next one is a brow product that I'm sure almost everyone has heard about, and it is the Anastasia Brow Wiz. And not just heard about, but heard about over and over and over again. This is the Anastasia Brow Wiz, like I said, in the shade medium brown. I'm using it today. I pretty much use it almost every day now. You know, like when you're in a rush in the morning, especially when you're getting ready for work, you don't have a lot of time, you tend to reach for the products that never fail you, and they're always just really quick and convenient. This is that product for me in the morning with my brows. I love how thin it is, and it's not really pigmented, so that's why you can kind of build it up and it looks really natural. You have a lot of control when you're using this. I do also plan to use the NYX version of this soon. I ordered it online and it's going to arrive soon. I think it's less than $10, so I'll let you guys know in some type of upcoming video if I like that or not. Next is lipstick, and when it comes to lipstick that is not from the drugstore, I think this is the brand that people talk about the most, and that's what I see anyway, and it is MAC. I had to include MAC lipsticks in this video because it's always talked about, whether it be your MAC lipstick collection or MAC lipstick dupes that you know of, or MAC limited edition lipsticks that are coming out overnight and you're setting your alarms to make sure that you're ordering them. I had to talk about them, so I wanted to mention 3 of my favorite lipsticks at the moment from MAC. The first one is an old favorite. It's a classic, and this is MAC's Cream Cup. It is a really creamy formula, and this is a really beautiful pale pink that's kind of like a nude pink pretty much, and it's just a classic. I love Cream Cup. Next up is Blankety. This is my favorite nude lipstick ever, and it's also very creamy. I love Blankety as that perfect neutral nude lipstick. I talk about it a lot. And this last one is Syrup, which is what I'm wearing right now. This is a luster finish, so it's a little bit more on the sheer side, and it's my favorite in the fall especially, but also when you want a little pigment to your lips but you don't want it to be too intense, this is one of my favorite lipsticks. And this last item I had to mention in this video because it's not necessarily a product, but it is a tool that you use to apply your makeup, and I am all about the Beauty Blender. The Beauty Blender to me is definitely worth the hype. It is a sponge that is $20, and that sounds ridiculous, but if you watched my video 2 videos ago when I'm applying makeup, you will see that I used a sponge, or I used the Beauty Blender to apply my powder as well. It just looks so much more blended and beautiful and natural when I'm using the Beauty Blender. It is going to be damp because you wash it every time, and I love using a damp sponge like this because it does soak up some product, and I know some of you were concerned about it soaking up too much of your foundation, but although it looks like all of your makeup has been soaked into this, it's still in there, so you can continue to stipple the sponge into areas or onto areas where you want a little bit more coverage, and that foundation is going to come out and go onto your skin. I do have a video from a while ago, it's like from last year, where I compared this to the Real Technique sponge, and at that time I thought the Real Technique sponge was not just as good, but really good for the price because it's a lot less expensive. I think it's $6 or so. But for some reason, I started noticing that they changed the way they made the sponge or something, because the holes in the sponge were not as tiny, so it was a lot bigger. Therefore, when you're applying the product, it doesn't look really smooth and really blended like it did when I first tried the Miracle Complexion sponge from Real Technique. So now I went back to this, and it's amazing. You can watch it in action in the video that I posted, not this last video, but the one before that. And I know a lot of people out there on YouTube also use the Beauty Blender, so I'm sure you've already seen it. But I love the Beauty Blender, and I'm all about the hype of the Beauty Blender. And that's pretty much it. I feel like I talked a lot in this video, and really I could dedicate a video a piece to each of these products because I love them so much. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. I will try to answer them for you the best I can. And if you guys have your own experiences with them too, please chime in, or feel free to chime in. And again, keep in mind that just because I love a product doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for everybody. But I do hope that if you end up trying one of these, that you guys love it as well. And I'd also love to know if you have your own recommendations when it comes to high-end products that are worth the hype, because I'm in the same position where I want to know what's good out there, and that's pretty much why I got almost all of these products. It's because of reviews that I've seen, that I've read, and I just want to know. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all again really soon. Bye!